Hi everybody, welcome to Back Chat. I'm Amy, this is my wife Maggie, and together we are ThinkerThemer, and this is our series Back Chat, where we look at our top 10 campaigns for the last fortnight or the last 2 weeks that are on GameFound and Kickstarter. We individually rate them for our level of excitement. We talk about which ones we're backing, and then we
average it
and create a ranking
where they land.
Exactly. But before we get into our top 10, of course, we just want to acknowledge the fact that this is a new week. We're excited and feeling really positive. We had a challenging weekend with a challenging video that we put out. But we just want to say thank you, first of all.
Yeah, thank you for all the support and all the everyone that sent comments and all of that. I really, we both really appreciate it.
Really appreciate it. So thank you everyone for your continued support. But you're here to hear about these campaigns. So let's get straight into it with our number 10.
All right. So our number 10 is a game called Don't Let It Die. Now, Don't Let It Die is a co-op survival game where we're playing as cave people trying to not let the fire die over the 14 rounds of the game and make sure that we survive throughout those 14 rounds so that we can discover the mysteries of the fire. And so in this game, it is co-op, which in our house usually means solo. We don't tend to play co-op games.
No, not with each other and not with other people.
Yeah, I tend to only kind of co-op in a solo version. And so with this game, because it's sort of taking place in that survival kind of mode in prehistoric kind of cave people time, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be foraging for items, you're going to be crafting different things, and essentially weighing up whether you're going to be using your resources to explore, discover those mysteries of the fire to be able to kind of progress on that track, or using those things to survive for the length of the game.
This is absolutely not my style of game, of course, because in our household this would be solo. It does look like a lighter experience compared to something, even maybe Paleo, a little bit lighter than that.
I love Paleo, Paleo the game. It did remind me a lot of it, and this feels like a more streamlined version,
and then of that, compared to something like Robinson Crusoe, obviously that is the very much gamers game version of a survival theme.
Much heavier, like very, very difficult as well.
Exactly. So this one does look a little light, potentially a little bit too light for me, and the artwork as well. It makes it suggests to me that it is like a lighter kind of a fun experience.
I really like the artwork though. It actually really appeals to me. So like aesthetically, I quite like. I enjoy the direction that they took it in.
One other thing with this game is the publisher is based in Australia, Brisbane, Australia, which is really cool to see. We always love and want to support Australian publishers. Unfortunately, the postage costs are $21 no matter where in the world you're located. So I hope that doesn't mean Australians are subsidizing the rest of world shipping. But I was really hoping for, a really kind of cheap postage on this item, because it's so hard for us being in Australia that we always pay so much more in shipping, as you would know if you're an Australian who loves backing these campaigns.
We'll just have to go and pick it up ourselves.
Just
don't worry about the shipping.
We'll just send a kangaroo, get them to bring it back over. Isn't that what people think that we do?
That's the
maybe?
way to do it. Yeah, that's the way to roll. Yeah.
Anyway, that is our number 10. Don't Let It Die.
And number 9 is a game called Paradox Initiative. Now, in Paradox Initiative, we play as scientists trying to study or actually grab strands of space-time. Space is not usually like... Space and time and things like that are not usually
I like time. I like time.
You like time? Yeah, you do
not space. I do enjoy a bit of time travel.
There is an element of that. Well, there's not so much time travel, but you are going to be trying to study worlds across the multiverse and these worlds can be in the past, present, and future. And so there's a bit of a combination of, you've got these like paradox engine where you're going to be manipulating that which is what's going to allow you to then kind of create it's a bit of a match 4, match 5 type game, where then it releases some of those tokens that then allow you to kind of get those explore those worlds. But whenever you are kind of exploring those worlds, there's this in the machine on the side, if you're kind of going to be creating these glitches or time fractures that then mean that some of those portals to those worlds are going to fracture, I think, and then become unavailable. So it is one of those things where then I might be doing things that mean that the state of the machine moves, and then some of the worlds that you're trying to explore or study now are not available, and so you're having to do things to recover or make those available again. So I feel like, again, having not played the game yet, is going to be one of those games where you're going to it increasingly becomes more difficult, because as people are achieving things, then more things become are more limited to be able to access. So with this game, what you're going to be trying to do is getting obviously the most points, but there's going to be almost like group or communal goals, and there's also going to be points for some set collections. So some of those, if you get the right cards from the past, present, and future from that set, you're going to get more and more points.
Now, this game is actually an older game that's been a bit re-implemented, and one of the exciting things about it is that it features art from a number of different, very well-known artists in the board gaming world. And in fact, it's probably the game that brings the most different artists together in one place, in one game. And I think that's really special, actually. And I really, despite not enjoying the theme or the setting of the game, I really do like some of the, like, looking at all of the different artwork. This game is by Elf Creek Games, and we were fortunate enough to be able to meet with them at Gamma and be shown the physical copy of this game, and just looking at the artwork, super beautiful. There is for me, the main mechanic, or that slider puzzle where you're trying to connect the light,
move the tokens, because you essentially can swap two tokens and then try and match the same color, 4 or 5 of them in a row.
I haven't found a board game yet that I've really enjoyed that mechanics, particularly because you play with that mechanic on maybe mobile games, and it's really fast and streamlined, and you get like the bonuses and things explode, and it's like kind of fun. But then I find like when it's actually you're doing that in a board game, to me it's a little fiddly, and everybody knows that I don't really like anything that's too like fiddly and moving things around. So for me, that was less appealing, on top of the space theme. So for that reason, I'm not backing this game. Although I really have to say that if you are into those things, the artwork is something that is just like, I'm sad not to have this in my collection because of the artwork. And there, as part of the campaign, you can get playmats, 18 of them. You can get the full set of 18, and the playmats just beautifully demonstrate the talent of these different artists. So at least go and check that out.
I think for me, it's probably, as a gameplay, it still feels like it's going to be more on the abstract side. So even though, I agree, like, because it's the aesthetics of it are going to be really cool with all those different artists, still the gameplay is going to be fairly abstract. So that's what makes it kind of lower for me.
Another great thing about Elf Creek Games, obviously really love the work they do with their components. You know that you're going to get a quality product, but also the shipping to Australia is super cheap. It's between $10 and $13 depending on what level you back the game at. So that is exciting. So go and check that one out. That is our number 9, the Paradox Initiative. Our number 8 is Lawyer Up Season 2. Now, Lawyer Up was originally on Kickstarter, and in this game, it's 2 players only. You play as either the prosecution or the defense in a trial, and each trial or each game is based around a case or a set of cards that you're going to be shuffling in to the base decks for each player. And the game essentially follows the process of creating or of like setting yourself up to go to trial, to sway a jury, to ultimately win the game. And what's interesting about this game is the different phases of the game. In the first phase of the game, you'll be going through a discovery process where you'll be taking a set of cards each and sorting those into either your own pile, i.e. evidence that you want to keep and play, or into your opponent's pile, or you'll be burying it into a pile that disappears from the case, things that you don't want your opponent to be using or playing against you. And then in the second phase of the game, you'll be taking all of those cards and dealing yourself 5 cards at a time to then play against certain witnesses. So each of you will be calling witnesses to the stand, and then you'll be using hand management to look at the cards in your hand and play evidence and arguments next to this witness in order to get influence from this particular part of the trial. Now, the way that you're going to be playing those cards against the witnesses is to be matching symbols that are on your cards with the symbols that are on on the witness, but this kind of cascades, as in the more cards that you play, the more opportunity you have to match different symbols. So you've got to think about the order in which you play the cards in your hand. At the end of each session with the witness, one of you is going to have more influence than the other, and that dictates the amount of sway that you have on the jury, because ultimately you're trying to sway the majority of those jurors to rule in your favor. Now that's the game. What does Season 2 bring? So Season 2 is bringing a solo expansion. So this game can now be played solo. You don't need that second person, which Maggie is always a big fan of, getting rid of me in games. And hey, don't agree.
I mean, it just makes it I was going to say
have to agree so quickly.
It makes it easier, but it doesn't. It depends on the automa, whether it makes it easier or harder. Yeah, it usually does. Like, usually most automans are not as strong or as difficult to play against than
or as smug.
Yes, they tend to be fairly neutral. Yeah,
they tend to be fairly neutral. Then there's also some additional modules. So I think there's 3 different modules that you can add to this game, and those modules are different cases. So different thematic overlays. But what's interesting about these modules is they don't just bring a new case and theme, but they also bring a new mechanic. For example, there's a new module called Divorce, which is a couple fighting over their marital assets.
High-profile celebrity divorce.
A 90s pop star, I believe, is one of them.
90s TV star versus a CEO of a startup, of like a tech startup.
So you're going to be arguing over, who gets the most out of this, the assets, and who gets the most out of this divorce. But a mechanic that's brought into this is that in this particular module, you have an attitudinal overlay, like how you're feeling as the trial progresses, and that's going to influence, again, your control over the marital assets and ultimately the points in the game. One thing that I really love about this module is the fact that the couple have alternating genders on either side of the card, which means that you can create whatever type of couple that you'd like to see. And I'm all about equal opportunity for divorce.
It's like, oh no. Like, the second, but also for marriage.
Also for marriage, obviously.
Obvious reasons.
Now, the second module that I want to talk about is the private detective style module, which actually brings in elements of Clue, whereas as the defense, you're going to have to guess kind of who was the murderer, but also what the weapon was and the location of that. So they're bringing in kind of that fun Cluedo element into the game.
This is like a 50s sort of film noir Hollywood kind of mystery type feel.
And so to get all of the extras, all of the new stuff in this campaign, it's $50, which is not too bad considering that we actually did not back this game to begin with. The original Kickstarter, we picked it up in retail, and I was quite surprised at how expensive it was in retail, and I don't know if that's just because it was kind of a small publisher and so there were fewer copies, but the actual I believe it was $60 Australian just for the base game here in Australia, which is quite expensive for a small 2-player game.
It's probably that big. So it's not a huge box.
I probably won't be backing these expansions, even though if you want to get into this game, it seems like a good way to do so and to get all this extra stuff if you're a fan, of course. For me, we've played this a little bit, this game. It hasn't quite clicked yet. For a game that the phases and the overlay is so extremely thematic, I find the actual process of matching symbols to be a little bit nuanced and fiddly in its rule set, but also very mechanical in the way it plays out. And for that reason, I find myself ignoring a lot of the flavor text. And I kind of don't want to do that. I want the flavor text to be more integrated into the game. Who am I, a themer? But this whole game is set up to be like this big trial and case, and it never quite feels like it gets that engine going for me in my mind.
I agree. It kind of felt, even though it's asymmetric in terms of what you're trying to accomplish and the flavor of the cards, the actual gameplay felt very much the same from either side. And
I think that's also because you're only shuffling in a small amount of additional cards into the base card. So you've got a mix of highly thematic case cards as well as some more functional mechanical cards. It's interesting. It's still in our collection. We're holding on to it for now to play it more and see how it reveals more layers. So
I think this is definitely one of those games where the specialness of it is in the discovering those cards in those cases, because it's almost like the narrative that unfolds as part of that. We haven't said the third scenario is actually like a casino heist. I kind of get vibes of like almost Ocean's 11 type thing, but they've kind of been caught, and so you're trying to prove which of those members need to, are guilty, and
I focused on the other two because I liked their new mechanics more. Sorry. But that is our number 8, Lawyer Up Season 2. Our number 7 is a little game called Choco Loco. Which is actually a game by Dave Barmer. And interestingly, that's not a name that probably a lot of people have heard of. But what's interesting to me is, like, as soon as I realized it was his design, I connected it to a number of other Kickstarter campaigns that I've spoken about in the past. I've never backed, and I don't own any of his games, but for some reason, all of his games do something interesting that kind of attracts. Like, always I'm giving it attention. I'm always considering backing it. So spoiler alert, we haven't also backed this game, but this is an interesting hand management game where you are going to be trying to do poker runs. And in your hand, you've got a number of chocolate cards, so different little chocolates that are
types,
that are being represented. That would be in a box of chocolates, as well as action cards that allow you to manipulate the game state. And what you're going to be doing each turn is playing cards into a common area where everybody is contributing to these different runs of chocolate cards, and everyone is going to be racing to achieve a certain number of objectives, and these objectives are going to be like 3 of a kind, and so you want to set yourself up for success, but you've also got to be really conscious of not allowing other people to meet those objectives, because it is a race.
Frustrating their plans.
And so I see this game as being something that would be really intensely competitive, and you know how that goes in our household. We love that. You love that too. You love competition.
I get into it.
And so I think that would be really fun. The one mechanic that so the cards that are action cards in your hand allow you to, swap cards over and do all these things to kind of mess up what other people are working towards and that kind of thing. Or to slow them down. But one of those cards actually forces people to trade hands, so to swap out hands of cards. That's probably my least liked element in this game. I really like strategy games, and to me, it's incredibly disruptive to swap cards out of my
brings
hand.
in an element of chaos. When you're like, you can't do any long-term planning.
Exactly. So that's the element I like least about this game. I just still think that it's a really interesting design. I love the idea of this like shared play area, but also the poker runs. I just think that all of it is kind of, it leans towards something that we would really like, and I would love to try this game. However, with the price of the game and the price of shipping, it's around $70 Australian delivered, which is quite expensive for a small card game. But I'm just fascinated by these designs. And I love the theme, chocolates. What's not to like?
Yeah, we love chocolate. I love chocolate.
Yes.
So theme is good.
Theme is great. So that is our number 7, Choco Loco.
Our number 6 is a game called Castles by the Sea, and in Castles by the Sea, you're going to be building sandcastles. And these sandcastles are all going to have sort of different unique shapes and unique requirements for those shapes to be built. But one of the threats is that there can be hazards that can actually make your castle crumble, which is one of my least favorite things in general, as a metaphor for whatever I'm trying to build something in a game, and then Amy comes and completely kicks my sandcastle. So this is it now.
This is it. Come to
embodied
life.
in a game form. Yes.
Now, the gameplay is really interesting because you're playing in a shared game space. So you've got this kind of grid that sits in the middle of all players. And on your turn, you're simply going to be collecting some sand blocks. And these sand blocks are then going to be played out into the shared space. So you can start to build on what other people have already put down on the board, or you can start your own structures. And then depending on the configuration of those structures, you're going to be able to unlock your personal kingdom pieces and then also contribute those to the main board. Now, you want to do that because the more kingdom pieces you remove from your cards in front of you, the more more ongoing income you're going to be collecting. And in this game, the income or the sand dollars are ultimately the victory points. And so the person with the most money is going to win. There are also other ways of collecting sand dollars through achieving public objectives before anybody else, which we love in a game.
Yeah.
And it just feels like this design is very clean, very simple. I got a very good sense of how this game would play based on the rule book, which is super clear.
Yeah.
One other thing that I've got to mention is that at the end of your turn, one of those events that Maggie mentioned does hit, and it affects all players at the table. So, for example, you might draw a dragon who might get rid of all second level blocks from the game, which is just going to frustrate yours and everybody's plans, and make it a little bit harder to achieve what you want to achieve.
I think that's what I'm going to struggle with the most. I just really struggle with, you've got this progress and you're going so well, and then all of a sudden something comes in and just sets you back. Like, I just, hate that.
You also don't like people stealing your stuff. And so if you were working on a building and I came over there, even though you don't technically own it, I don't think that you would enjoy that either.
Yeah. It almost reminds me, actually, the 3D component reminds me a lot of Santorini, where, you're kind of building on those. And as you were saying, it's like it's that spatial type element, which doesn't tend to be our type of game. Like, some of the type of games that we tend to enjoy or play.
Yeah, those types of games don't get a lot of time at our table. It's just not something that's like as exciting to us. But if you are looking for something kind of lighter to medium weight, I think this would be and something with a race element. I think this is a really clean, interesting design. If I was backing this game, I would back it at the deluxe level, and I don't always back everything at the deluxe level anymore. But this one has upgraded wooden components, and it also adds in screen printed meeples as well, which is really cute. But go and check that out if it sounds like something for you. That is our number 6, Castles by the Sea. And number 5 is a game called Autobahn, which refers to the high-speed road network in Germany. And in this game, you are going to be trying to build out that network, or use pick up and deliver to move things around that network, or work on a service station network faster and better than your opponents in this game. Fun Australian slang dictionary alert. A service station here is called a
Servo,
good one. So you can build out these servos, but there are many different ways that you can approach this game, and that's something that typically Maggie and I really tend to love. This has all
caloric strategies and different ways to
this has classic Euro vibes. In this game, you're going to be getting actions done by playing cards out of your hand relating to those different actions, and there's a really strong element of hand management in that, because you need to be able to reclaim the cards that you've played if you want to play them again. So thinking about the order that you're going to do things is really important in this game. Another element that I really like about this is that you're going to be promoting your employees throughout this game. And when you promote your employees, you're going to be deciding on the end game scoring conditions that are going to apply to you and you alone, which is kind of interesting depending on what strategy you're playing out. And then your player board is full of tech trees, which allow you to improve your actions or improve your ability to score points throughout the game, which, we tend to really enjoy as well. So it's just, this game has all of these mechanics in it that we tend to really enjoy.
I love, it does feel very, classic Euro-y type thing. I love being able to feel like I have multiple games within the game to try and like explore different things, figure out how does it feel if you play it this way, what happens if I go this other way. So this definitely sounds like it's going to offer that.
Absolutely. But we obviously haven't played the game, but the sense that I get from this game as well is that those 3 strategies, building rows, building servos, and pick up and deliver are very interlinked, and so you can actually swap your strategy to leverage what other people are doing in the game. So if people are moving around the board lots, then maybe you want to work on that service station network. So I just find that really interesting, and I really, really would love to have a play of this game. game. Interestingly, there are two. There's kind of a deluxe edition, and then there's also a regular retail edition of this game. What the deluxe edition is giving you is more mini expansions, which doesn't tend to be something that draws me in, because sometimes we don't even get past the base game, to be honest. So the mini expansions, less of a draw card, but to upgrade to that edition is only $7 US or $10 Australian. So it just makes it is a no-brainer. You just get the deluxe edition. Most people are doing that as well. However, shipping to Australia, always the thing,
Typical,
is $40, but you can pick it up for free at Essen. So it looks like that might be a better way for us to get this.
That justifies the whole flight. You know that.
It looks like we've got to go to Essen and pick up a copy of Autobahn.
It's cheaper to fly to Essen.
We might as well do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for now we haven't backed that. I'm still on the fence about whether to back it. But go and check that out. Certainly sounds like a game that would be kind of right in our sweet spot of what we enjoy.
Yeah.
But that is our number 5, Autobahn.
And number 4 is For Northwood. Now, this is a solo trick-taking game.
Solo trick-taking.
Solo trick-taking. Very rare thing. We have been getting into trick-taking more and more. It's one of those mechanics that I am really, really enjoying. And solo games, again, also something that I really enjoy. I think this might even sway you, because you quite enjoy.
I really enjoy trick-taking games. And so I was very I was hoping Maggie would be really into it.
Yeah.
And so I might be able to get a sneaky game with it in.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about the game. So for Northwood, we are actually trying to prevent war, or prevent things going, all these different animal leaders deciding to, go to war. And so you're trying to be very diplomatic and have conversations with them, have that discourse and get them on your side. So on the side of your argument. The way you're going to be doing that is by playing tricks or winning tricks against, or winning the right number of tricks, I should say, against that one leader. Yeah. So you're going to have your kind of set of your hand of cards, and then with that, you're also going to have all the different leaders, and are going to be placed in different positions. That means in order to sway them, you need to win exactly one particular number of tricks, and I believe they go from like lowest to highest. They each have their own trump suit, so you kind of have an idea of what line of argument you would be having to use to sway them. Obviously, I'm saying that thematically, but the gameplay is going to be very numbers, like trick-taking, abstract type. And what's going to be happening is, obviously, as you're playing that, you're also going to have available some abilities that you can use for a benefit that obviously breaks some of the usual rules of the game. If you manage to get them on your side, you kind of turn them, you actually bring them lower, and so they're underneath it'll say For Northwood. And if not, then they turn kind of upside down. So it's like, well, they're now opposing you or against you.
I really like the artwork for this game. It's very cute. Yeah. I keep looking at it and I'm like, I just want to have that in our collection, because it's rare to have a solo trick-taking game.
Very rare, yeah.
And we like trick-taking, and it's just really cute. And so I've been kind of nudging Maggie to be like, don't you want to back this game?
And I think that, like, I do love the artwork. I enjoy the theme of it. And I think the reason that's holding me back a little bit is that I think trick-taking is something that I enjoy with other people, because trick-taking in and of itself is quite abstract. So it's more about the interaction with the other person for me.
Yeah, the choices.
The choices of, and what are they going to do, and what. Whereas when I play a game solo, what I like about the solo experience is more if I'm exploring the game and what's the narrative in here, and what are the different options. With trick-taking, it's like, it's tricks, winning those tricks or not. Yeah. So that's why it's kind of, rating a little bit lower.
Yeah, I guess it's on the fence whether we back it or not, but the thing that's pushing us into backing this game is because the game is by Side Room Games, a small publisher who also had their solo game that's really popular, Maggie owns, called Black Sonata.
Very clever.
As well as some others. But this particular game is only $15 to purchase, and then $5 shipping to Australia, which makes it a really compelling back, and something we both kind of want to try. And I'm not usually one for solo gaming, as everyone knows, but I am kind of like, well, when it's that abstract, it's like a game of solitaire to me. Like when you're playing with like regular playing cards, that's what I think of. And so I am interested to try it out, and it's super cute.
I will sit next to you and I'll cheer you on, so that way you'll have some interaction aside from just the gameplay.
Well, that's good, because then I'll have a competitive element of trying to beat you at your own game.
Yeah.
So that is our number 4 for Northwood.
And number 3 is a game that I am so excited about. I am a 10 excited about, and that is Sleeping Gods Distant Skies. This is a standalone sequel to Sleeping Gods, which I've actually covered in the channel. And it is standalone. And it was like, oh, it's an expansion. It's not an expansion. This is the same world, but it's a new adventure, and it's its own thing. So you don't even have to have played the first, or Sleeping Gods, the original kind of game. So this game is a cooperative game, which is why, again, it's become a solo game in our house. I really, really, really loved going through that world and losing myself in that narrative with Sleeping Gods. My issue with it, if you kind of watch the reviews, mechanically kind of got to a point where I was like, oh, it felt a little bit repetitive, and I had a couple of other frustrations with it, but it sort of woke up my excitement for those deep, narrative-rich games. So in this game, again, we're going into that same world, but this way we're actually coming in through a portal in the sky. So we're kind of flying, and there's a portal in the sky that opens up and sucks us in. We land in the Sleeping Gods universe or realm. And so now we're going to have to obviously deal with all the different things that we're going to come across in terms of the land and monsters, and then try and figure out how we get out before the portal closes up again. One of the things I'm really excited about with this game is that it really does feel like they have learned from the first game and streamlined and improved a lot of the gameplay components. So I feel like not only that, there's now also going to be an audio narrative. So it's going to be even more immersive. Not only is it a beautiful world to look at aesthetically and a great sort of narrative, like fairly well-written narrative, but it's also going to have that full audio, music, and acted voices. So I think, I genuinely cannot wait to jump into this world. I'm also quite intrigued about this concept of learning the game through a comic book, which again is a very kind of narrative, immersive way of going into that world, as opposed to just a cold rule book, so to speak. Yeah.
It feels like this game is scratching all the itches for you that I don't want scratched.
Well, I was going to say there's a new, one of the things that you're doing now is you're kind of building a deck of all the weapons, so for fighting. So again, like the combat is one of those areas that has been really optimized and streamlined, and I do love the fact that now, those weapons are going to come from a deck that you're building over time, and you allocate all those abilities, so yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, from a pure observer perspective, I mean, this campaign seems fantastic because all the things that people love about Sleeping Gods, they're kind of leaning into, and there's more narrative, and there's more the comic, and there's all these like interesting new ways to be immersed in the story. Yeah. Sleeping Gods woke that up in Maggie. It put that to bed for me. Playing these narrative adventures.
Nice puns, game.
Yeah,
well done. Yeah.
Are really not of interest to me. I am mechanics focused, and so for me it just kind of takes me out of what I really love about games. But I can see why a lot of people love this. I will say, from a collectability perspective, it was really hard for us to get a copy of the Kickstarter edition of Sleeping Gods after the campaign. Yeah. And so for that reason, we had to kind of reach out to our network of people who knew someone who had a copy, which was really difficult. This game, I think, is quite reasonably priced at $85, including that audio campaign. That seems like a good deal for me, especially because it was really hard to get after the fact. So we will be backing this. Maggie is a 10 out of 10. So obviously that is just an instant back from us. Yeah. I want to also talk about the second game that's part of this campaign.
Yes, Primeval Peril.
That's it. And so this time you're in a swampland. Yeah. And you're now on a boat and you're traveling through. And my understanding of this was a digital only game, and this is the first time it's been available in print format. But this one is like a one-shot, one world story,
1 to 2 player type. Very, very concise version of the gameplay.
A very condensed version of the Sleeping Gods game, which people have been using as a way to learn about the mechanics in the game and learn about the different systems and the world. So that could be interesting if you have never played Sleeping Gods. Yeah. I don't know.
Or if you want to use it, maybe I haven't played it, but I'm imagining if you have some friends that might be into playing the proper Sleeping Gods game, and you're like, well, let's just try this one and see.
Oh, it's only 1 to 2 players though, so it's just you and one other friend.
Yeah. But it's like, this is a good, one world
Yeah.
kind of, as you said, like one shot intro. And
Yes.
go, if you did not enjoy that, then maybe, committing
Maybe you're
to
not gonna like
a full
the-
Sleeping
yeah.
Gods game is not going to be the way forward.
Yeah,
But it's
absolutely.
a good trial.
So we haven't decided whether we're backing both games or just one at the moment, because it does add a significant impact, an extra, 50 or so
My
dollars.
10 is entirely driven by Distant Skies. Like, that is, that world. I kind of want to go back into it. I want to explore more things and, immerse myself in all the beautiful new
you don't want a
audio
shorter
and music.
experience. You want a crazy bigger experience.
That's going to be a distraction for me. I just want to go back.
So that is our number 3 and a 10 out of 10 for Maggie. That is Sleeping Gods Distant Skies. Our number 2 is a game called Last Light, and what you'll see on the screen right now is that Last Light is a 10 out of 10 for me after this week's Sleeping Gods being a 10 out of 10 for Maggie.
Big week.
Big, expensive
Lots of
week.
anticipation in this week.
A lot of excitement, but very different excitement. So Last Light is a game designed by the Dice Tower's Roy Cannaday, and the game is a 4X game that's been designed to play in under an hour with many players around the table. We did have the opportunity to play this game in prototype form at Dice Tower West, which was amazing because we got taught by Roy and we got to experience a full, I think it was a 7 or 8 player game that we actually played, and the game took 56 or 57 minutes from memory.
It lived up to the promise.
It really did.
Under an hour.
And it was actually quite a speedy teach as well. So the way that this game works is you are all going to be playing as asymmetric alien factions. And these alien factions are going to be sending out ships into space to go to different planets and to discover these planets and to collect resources from these planets and to ultimately try to be the first person to collect 20 shards of light.
Yes, because it's sort of taking place at the is it called the heat death of the universe? So it's like it's literally the last light. We're grasping onto the last bits of light.
Bits of light. And this game is really interesting in the way it plays out. Again, you're playing with a hand of cards where you're going to be selecting the action that you want to take. But the reason why this game is so fast is because everybody does that simultaneously. So you're evaluating the actions you can get done. You're going to be playing one out of your hand. At the same time, everybody reveals what they're doing. And then for the most part, those actions are played out simultaneously on the board. So the things that you can get done is to go out and explore, is to battle, of course, with other players, but also to upgrade your ships, because you're going to have a fleet of ships of different sizes that cost, obviously, the more powerful the ship, the further it can travel, they're going to be more expensive. And then you've got smaller ships that are easier to get out on the board, but not as powerful. But you're also going to be able to add different
like
technologies to those ships in order to upgrade them along the way. And so the whole game, you're trying to work out what is the safe things you can do without kind of attracting the attention of everybody else and then getting
big
piled
target
in
on your back.
But another thing I love about this game is that there are also a secret objective that you have which will give you a lot of shards of light if you can achieve a certain combination of planets. So for example, I believe the one that I was going after in the game was to try and take over 4 of the green planets, and all of the planets on the board are different colors, and so you can be working towards getting these sets, if you like, to achieve like big bonuses. The other cool part about this game, and you can hear my excitement as I'm talking about it, is that the whole game board shifts. And what's interesting about this game is that everybody's going to be playing these actions out of their hand. But at some point you need to retrieve your cards, because otherwise you're only going to be able to do these actions one at a time until, if you want to do an action a second time, you need your cards back. And so that retrieve action, once everybody has retrieved around the board, it's going to trigger a number of things to happen, kind of like a cleanup setup phase, but also a scoring phase where you're going to benefit as well. And so there's a really interesting strategy around the timing of when you retrieve, not only because you want to do different actions, but also because it's going to impact everybody else and what they're going to be able to achieve. It also impacts the way that the board turns and when the board turns. And that's important because you're putting your ships out directly in front of you, but as the board turns, now you've got the opportunity to put ships out much closer to the opponents around the other side of the table. And so this game for me is just fast, action packed. You've got to think on the fly. There's so many things to think about. To get things done, you need to do other things first. And so the whole time you're just thinking about what is coming, like, around on the board, like, what do I need to get done, and who's attacking me, and how do I defend myself? And there's just so much happening.
Yeah, this is a game, there is what it scores lower for me. It's like, I really tend to enjoy the combat, the confrontation, and all I wanted to do when we were playing, and you can, obviously, in a 4X game, you can kind of try and find different ways or other ways of doing it. I just, obviously, not knowing how to play those games, I didn't optimize the things that I should have earlier on. All I wanted to do, because one of the things that you can do is like you go all the way to the center where the core light sun, I guess, would be, or like core light sources, and then you just kind of hang out there and just grab as much light as you can. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to just very peacefully go and hang by the light.
But that's the interesting
not taking
thing.
anyone else's light, but then people come over, and then it's.
But
just
that's
like,
the thing is like you can go and sit there, and everybody knows that you're sitting there just collecting light, and it's like, how long can you hang out there before someone changes their strategy to come and take you down
and combat away?
And I just found that so interesting and so hyper competitive, and I just really enjoyed it. It plays with it plays 2 to 4, I believe, with the base game, but then up to 8 people if you've got the expansion. And this is a game that so neatly fits in that gap in your collection where it's a meaty, strategic, thoughtful game that plays in under an hour with a huge group of people. There's no other game that meets those conditions in our collection, and I can't for that reason not back it. And the other thing is that I was so close to the win in that game. I think I had 19 shards of light, and I did get attacked from all sides at one point, which really destroyed my position. But after I finished playing it, I haven't stopped thinking about it. I'm just like, I just want to play that again and better optimize what I was doing. And so the game is really about optimization. I really dislike space themes.
I was going to say,
like,
even with the space theme, Roy,
even with the space theme,
you managed to get a space game.
Even with the
Amy
space theme,
and I'll be like,
even though I really don't enjoy like the alien factions, there's nothing about that intrigues me. I'm not excited about the different alien factions. I am excited about the physicality of the planets. I really do enjoy that.
The 3D, like, and that was one of those cool things, having that 3D table presence of all those different planets, different sizes, different colors, and obviously the moving board, like that adds quite a nice dimension to the gameplay experience.
It does. Interestingly, they say on the campaign that no 2 games are identical, and I believe it's because of the way that those acrylic planets kind of have the swirl in them. But anyway, you can see that I'm so excited about this that I probably didn't do my due diligence to talk about price, but only because I blind backed this game. So I think this game will also probably hold its value. The gameplay is really great, but also there are a number of Kickstarter Game Found upgrades in the campaign that won't be available in the retail edition, and that includes some pretty significant upgrades to the miniatures in this game, which I think is really just going to add to the table presence. And when you've got 8 people around the table, like, you want it to have that immersive kind of impact. Listen to me, I'm going on and on. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. It's been a while. That is our number 2 Last Light. And our number 1 game for this fortnight, in a very competitive fortnight, is a little game called Birds of a Feather, Western North America.
Look at that. I did not expect this was one of those surprise games that it's so unassuming, and it's so simple and fairly very, very quick to learn. But in this game, it's a bird watching game, which, we know that there's a couple of other, one particularly other major bird watching game. Don't even try and compare the two. Very, very different types of games, very different spaces. The theme is the thing. With this game, I was so surprised at how much I enjoyed it from the get-go. Like, it doesn't take a lot of table space to play it. You can play another game, just like with Last Light, you can play a lot of people because you've got that simultaneous sort of action thing. There's no downtime of, AP or things like that. It was just such a delight. You are bird watching, and so all you're really trying to do is get the best combination of watch as many high value birds or get all birds of one habitat to get the most points by the end of the game. The way it plays is everyone's got a hand of cards of all their birds. Each bird has their own habitat. So simultaneously, we're going to be picking a card from our hand, playing that card, and so the habitat of the card that we play, that's the habitat that we're going to. So, for example, it might be the mountains or the forest, and so if I'm going to the mountains, then I'm going to be seeing the bird that I played, because that's in the mountains, and any other birds that get played that have the same habitat. So if there's other mountain birds, I'll get to spot them as well. Then that round of birds ends up kind of lingering. They call their lingering birds. They tend to kind of go into the center. And so the next round, people can kind of suss out, go, ooh, there's quite a lot of birds in the mountains. Maybe I'll go to the mountains this time. And so you get to then have against the same pick a card. Everyone kind of has that simultaneous reveal, and then again, whoever played whatever habitat they played, they're going to be able to see that one. Any others that are played that turn that are the same habitat, and any lingering birds that are in that same habitat. The one tricky thing, which actually I think brings so much sort of fun and like, no, come on, into the game, is the predators. So you have predator cards where if you play the predator, the lingering birds of that habitat fly away, and it means that then no one, not even the person playing the predator, gets to see them. So often it's one of those moments where you have that, no, I can't believe you did that. Like, there was going to be so many birds that I was going to be able to score and see. But yeah, it often gets done either by meanness or strategically, or I just found myself oohing and ahhing all the time, going, oh, you got to see that bird, or oh, that's so great, or no, I'm gonna miss out, or
And I think my experience of this game was really different to Maggie's in that I didn't love it at first, and the more I played it, the more layers of strategy kind of peeled back, and I realized just how thoughtful and interesting the order in which you play cards out of your hand really makes a difference. Because originally when I first started playing this game, there's a scorecard, a paper one, but the brilliant thing about this game is it comes with a free app in order to sustainably try and minimize the amount of paper that they're using in this game. But the app is brilliant. So easy, you ask everybody around the table to download the app, and the app is essentially just the scorecard, but it allows you to mark them off as you go. And I think there's something just really satisfying in playing a card, marking it off yourself, but then getting these bonus things that you also get to mark off, and it's like automatically doing your scoring and everything. So that's all easily done. But in this game, when you get dealt a hand of cards, that's the hand of cards that you'll have for the rest of the game. And sometimes that feels really unfair, because you might be dealt a card that only has one card of a habitat. But what then becomes interesting is, when is the optimal time to play that card? Because there are more valuable cards within each habitat. And so you want to think about, well, I'll save that one card for when there's lots of things to see and everybody's going for them, in order to try and, I might get close to a lot of the habitat completed just by having one card. If you've got the predator of the suit in your hand, you also might want to think about maybe making it really appealing, like putting out another valuable card that everybody wants to go for that round before you then...
That you've already got, usually.
Before you then throw out, like, the predator, and, everyone gets really disappointed. But that's what's really fun about this game. And also, when you are able to see everything in a single habitat, that's really satisfying. I have to say, the joy for me in this game, the reason why it's a 9 for me, is the impact that it has on other people around the table. And that this is now the most played game that we've played this year. And the reason why is because it's a small deck of cards. It's easy to teach. Everybody that I've played it with has really loved it, to the point where they've asked, what is the name of this game? When can I buy it? And for that reason, I've already backed 3 copies of this game. What my mum's just asked me for a copy, so that's going to be the 4th copy if I back this game even further. But it's also like a really great project to get behind, because they are trying to do things in the most sustainable way possible, and we want to support projects like that. It just so happens that this is also an awesome game to carry around. So maybe now I'll have 2 games in my back pocket, 1 Birds of a Feather and Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza.
I would say, if you've listened to the channel before, I'm not the biggest fan of Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza.
I won't hear a bad word about it.
I sort of feel like, Birds of a Feather, always going to be in my pocket. That's always going to be my vote. Better option for me.
It's a very different game experience.
Very different.
Anyway, without going into Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza, that's an energizing game. This is a very cup of tea, very relaxed. Like, we found it to be just that perfect game where people aren't really willing to commit to a big game, but want to play something, or you're just at someone's house and you've got a game that's like, hey, here's a quick game we can all play. And every time we finish a game, it's like, again.
Yeah,
and
because
you end
it
up
doesn't
playing
take that long
four games, and it does play a high player count, so it's got all of those things going for it.
I love also the scalability of the strategy that you could put into it. Like you can, and I think this was the experience initially. It's like, oh, it's so luck dependent. It's like, because you could just play it very relaxed, not involve too much brain kind of churning power of going, oh, what am I gonna, and just sort of play different habitats and try and see as many birds as you can see, and that's it.
Yeah, but that's why I think that people want a copy of this game, is because the more you play it, the more you realize, hang on, I could have done this differently. And then everyone wants to keep playing it.
Because you've got, so one of the clever things about this is you know exactly how many of each card there are in the deck. So for example, there might be a card that's really, really high value, and you know that for each habitat there's only one. So when that card comes out, you either spot it this turn, next turn, if a predator doesn't scare it away, or that's it. You're never going to be able to score that. The other thing is that you've got this attempt to see all of the birds in one habitat, because then that'll give you additional points. So you have all these sort of these tensions that mean that you can kind of play it very relaxed, or you can actually put a fair bit of like thinking power behind it and play around with a strategy a lot more. Yeah.
So interestingly, this little game snuck in as our number one of the fortnight, in a week where if it had have been our individual rankings, we both would have had different number one games. Really interesting, but this is a game that brought us together, and I think it's a game that will bring lots of people together around your table. That is our number one, Birds of a Feather, the Western North American deck. So that's our top 10 for this fortnight, which has been a really expensive fortnight. We've backed 4 games. There might be a 5th.
Very strong contenders this week.
Really strong contenders. How did you decide between them? We'd love to hear from you in the comments section. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to the channel. This week, we have a pretty exciting collaboration to be announced. Yeah. So keep your eye out for that one. But otherwise, we'll be back with more content soon. Bye for now.
Bye.